Hello, my name is Darrell Robert Schoon, and on my last program I talked about the epoch of change that is the passing away. I pointed out that Professor David Hackett Fischer, in his book The Great Wave, Price Revolutions and the Rhythm of History, had said that the current era, which he called the era of Victorian stability, had begun to change in 1896. A historical wave of great proportions was set in motion, as such waves have been throughout history, and when it finally crests and when it finally breaks, it's going to wipe away the world that we have grown up with in the last 300 years, which is the last cycle that we've had. Victorian stability, England is a world power, U.S. is a world power. That is all changing, causing communism to rise up in opposition to the Western economic capitalist debt-based model, and it's going to be swept away. Well, I want to put it in a different context. And a couple years ago, I gave a talk in the Bay Area. I was invited by a very interesting group of people, favors.org, started by Sergio Lube. And I gave a talk to this group. And because the group was a bit different, I was able to approach the economic crisis from another angle. All right? And what I said was, at the time, is that you had to understand derivatives. All right, to understand the context of the economic collapse. And by this, I did not mean financial derivatives, something that took its value from something else. In other words, it was a derived value. All right, but what I want to say, what I said to this group was that just as the economic crises, most people did not understand what money was, and they still don't. I mean, you think that piece of paper is money? Well, it's money now. But it's based on a derived value that it used to have. It used to be convertible to gold. All right. As recently as 1971, other countries could take their excess U.S. dollars, turn it into the Treasury, and get gold for it. All right. Because a piece of paper without any real backing is just a piece of paper. That's all it is. It's a piece of paper. It's a coupon. All right. And the fact that it takes more coupons to buy goods today than it did 10 years ago shows that that coupon, because they print more and more, the coupons are getting less and less valuable. All right? There's many issues. That's called the quantity theory money. It's only one of the ways that people explain what's going up and down, and it has its own shortcomings. But just as much as people don't understand economics and they don't understand money, they also don't understand who we are. And as this period is being brought to a close, not only is our economic system going to change, our notions about who we are going to change radically. So I want to go back to the period when the area of Victorian stability started and just show quickly the changes that have happened since then. And then I'm going to read this essay that I wrote to Sergio Lube's group, because it's all part and parcel of the same thing. But in 1695, when England first started introducing debt-based money, the world separated into East and West. All right? The East was China, India, somewhere out there, if you were in the West. To the Chinese, that's all there was. The Chinese called themselves the Celestial Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom. All right? To the Chinese, you who were in the West, England, the United States, Europe, were just a bunch of barbarians. They really had no truck with. They didn't want to even deal with you. All right? But that was about soon to change. Because what happened is that the Industrial Revolution, fueled by England's debt-based money, ushered in a period of vast technological change. And so what happened is England not only expanded its empire based on its infusion of debt-based money, they built the greatest navy that the world had ever seen on credit. And with this navy, they knocked over every country they could in building the British Empire. All right? As a result of this, they knocked over India, sucked its vast wealth. Then they tried to knock over China, and they couldn't do it. China was just a little too big. So the Western capitalist behemoth that was taking over the Western world it couldn't eat anymore. And communism, as an opposing ideology, as an opposing economic system, rose up to try and stop capitalism's advance. Well, communism never was an economic system per se. It was an ideological system. Capitalism truly was an economic system. Capitalism was based on debt-based money. the substitution of credit and debt for gold and silver, all right, based on interest, based on betting on the future, based on expansion, all right, truly is an economic system. Now it is collapsing and it's going to pass away. But the difference between capitalism and communism never was truly an economic system. It was made up on the fly by countries that were trying to resist being swallowed up by the Western economic capitalist system, which at that time was basically the large agrarian economies of Russia and China. Marx had said communism was going to rise out of the capitalist workers' dissatisfaction with their lot. It was crazy. It didn't happen. Communism arose in these vast agrarian societies that were in danger of being swallowed up by the West. And so what happened is communism as an ideology took hold as a reaction to the West capitalism, and they made up this economic system that was nuts. All right? That was nuts. You can't create an economic system by saying you do this, you do this, you do this, because systems are alive like we are alive. In fact, probably one of the greatest books on economics was ever written was by a person named Ludwig von Mises. All right? And von Mises was an Austrian economist. And the title of his book was called Human Action. It proceeds from humanity. And Ludwig von Mises, an Austrian economist, said, and I'll never forget what he said. I read his obituary in the Wall Street Times. And I was stunned by this. I never heard of this man before. And what he said was this: freedom was the basis of humanity's progress. And he said, not just economic freedom, but social freedom. All right? And what you have in the polarity that we have, the political polarity today, is that you have East and West, male and female, Democrat, Republican, conservative and liberal, all fighting with each other for supremacy. All right? The capitalists, or the Republicans, they really are the capitalists, all right, even though they bought over the Democrats lately, they believe in total economic freedom, but they don't believe in social freedom. All right? What they use the laws to do is license to do as they want to do, all right? And then they use the laws to control society. That's what the Republicans are doing. All right? They talk about freedom as only freedom for what they want to do. Now the Democrats, they sit there and they want freedom to do what they want to do, but they want to use the laws to control capitalism, the business people. Now, I'm not saying there is no reason for laws. There are reasons for laws, but they have to be within certain parameters that respect the process of freedom itself, the freedom of choice, which we don't have. Now, in the last 300 years, what we had was, after England went over the rest of the world, we now have it coming together. For the first time in the history of humanity, East and West is joined. All right? And this is a period of vast change. The way we view ourselves, the way we view society, the way we view God, the way we view who we are in this vast phenomena is going to change in ways that we just don't understand yet. But it is going to happen. What we are seeing is a coming together of humanity on a level that has never been before seen. The greatest change, in fact, is happening is reflected in this East-West dynamic. And just as you have the East and West coming together, you have the male and female polarities coming together too. Now, before you had the male and female polarities coming together, the male polarity was dominant in every culture across the world. That was the one thing the world almost had in common, except in these Polynesian cultures, which are collective, tribal-based, and basically had more feminine values. In the rest of the world, it was basically male, hierarchically dominant. This is true in China. This was true in the West. This was true in most of the world. The men were the dominant species, the dominant gender. What has happened over the last 200 years, it is becoming into balance. Now, this process is speeding up, and when change happens, it sets in motion a reaction. A reaction, because what happens is change means that which is now is going to be swept away. And nobody, when you have entrenched ideologies, when you have entrenched economics, they all try and keep the world say the way it was, the way they were familiar with, the way they were grown up with. And it is true in the East and in the West. Now, because you have this balance as part of this great change today, where you have the rise of women, the rise of the female polarity, it is being resisted in every culture. And this is where you're seeing the rise of fundamentalism. All right? The rise of Muslim fundamentalism was in reaction to Western values sweeping in to fundamentalist agrarian societies, all right, where the men had total control over the women. Total control. Women had no power at all. And in the West, they had a little power, but as women started getting more power, it too was resisted. All right? So, and most of this happened within a religious context because religious thought and belief reflects societal mores as much as anything else. Embedded in religious thought and religious dogma are societal mores. So when you had change sweeping through Muslim countries, you had the rise of fundamentalism resisting this change. When you had change sweeping through the United States, especially after 1960, you had the rise of religious fundamentalism resisting this change. And now, but you can resist it all you want. You can try and stop history, and people do. But history is going to will out. Progress is going to will out. What we are seeing here, we're in the midst of a vast conflict. The conflict between the world that is passing away and the world that is going to replace it. And we are seeing the last stand of the world that was. We are seeing the vast banking and financial structures of the West crumbling. Just like after 1990, we saw the vast power edifices of communism, both in Russia and in China, turn to dust. Now, China calls itself a still communist country, all right? But the only thing that is taken with it from the previous regime of communism is a centralized, highly centralized authority and highly authoritarian. Its economic base is totally capitalistic. So the communist superstructure passed away in a twinkling of an eye. The Western capitalist structure is also going to pass away, albeit a little slower because it was a real economic structure. What is also going to pass away is the beliefs, the creeds of the present era. The way we have seen ourselves, the way we see history, the way we see life is going to change as dramatically as our economic systems are changing themselves. Now, when I gave this talk before favors.org, I said that, in fact, in my Schoenworks video channel, one of the programs, this is the program that I read this, what I'm going to read to you right now. It has gotten over 8,000 hits, probably more than almost any other, I think my talk about confiscating gold and silver was hit 12,000. But this paper I'm going to read you, it was one of the most popular that I have put out. And I didn't write it. My son wrote it. And, or it was written through him. It was truly written through him. He was 12 years old at the time. He was going to a school in Marin County, and it was a private school. And it was based on the theory that children have a great capacity to understand ideas that they never exercise because they're never given access to these ideas. He was 12 years old, told he had to write a paper on the role of the superconscious in art and culture. He was so frustrated he didn't know what to do, and one night he sat down and he asked his higher self for help. He asked the superconscious for help. He was 12 years old. This is what he wrote. It's called the superconscious. The superconscious is a term Carl Jung created. It's limited as a word and perhaps as a concept, but unlimited as reality. Other limited words like higher consciousness or higher being are synonyms for the superconscious, but that's all they are. Some perceive the superconscious to be a separated force which guides all beings individually. Others think it is a unified entity which is everything. But nevertheless, it is what it is, and that's all that it is. The answers are here, but where can we find them? Few know the answers, but none know the solution, said a foolish philosopher who spoke of God's name, but not of his essence, and was a wise philosopher who knew of God's essence, but not of itself. He knew what he was, but never met himself. He met himself, but did not recognize himself. He analyzed this using logical reasoning, the thing which explains all except its creator. Mental understanding in a physical realm, spiritual knowledge in a mental understanding, all is strived for, but is seldom achieved. The philosopher searches for answers in a manner he knows will not suffice, and yet is too smart to change his method. Purpose is an answer to everyone's questions. They look beyond themselves and already have gone too far. Those who have power in the physical plane seldom have control in the mental aspect. Those who have control in the mental aspect seldom have holiness in the spiritual realm. Those who have full holiness in the spiritual realm are beyond yet behind this physical existence. You complain about the path, yet you refuse to leave it. You are confined within your taxi of mental mobility, free to move around inside. You question your driver, whom you've never met, as to where you're going and why. Frustrated with getting no answer, you consider escape. The jump would be rough, the fall would be rougher, but you would be free. But you're too scared, for the taxi ride is all you know. You are angry because you're not going where you want to go. You apparently have no control. Fear sets in. You try to seize control, and you drive down the wrong road to get to your destination. Or are you? The driver eventually gets you onto another main road, and the road is smooth again. You let the driver take you to your destination. He stops. You know you must get out, but you don't know what to do once you're out. Reluctantly, you get out. You instantly remember who you are. You then get in another taxi and forget who you are again, but the road is smoother. This happens until you realize you are and have been the driver all the time. If perception creates reality, one must change perception in order to change reality, or one might stop perceiving. This does not mean to stop reality, for you would still observe and react in other people's perception of reality. It simply means to stop judging. The road is then smooth until you reach your destination. He was 12 years old when he wrote that essay. He was supposed to write a 10-page essay called The Role of the Superconscious in Art and Culture. Frustrated that he couldn't do it, finally he sat down, because I asked him, I said, how did you write this? He said, I didn't know what to write. And I knew the paper was due, so he said, I asked myself. And this is what came out. This is the new world. This is an example of who we are going to become. Not only is our economic system going to change in ways that we cannot even yet imagine. Not only are we going to live together in peace as we never have before. Not only are these things going to come to pass, but we ourselves are finally going to become that which we were meant to be and not which we have been for the past eons of our history. I used to say, until humanity changes, history will not. What I'm saying now is history is going to change because humanity is going to change also. A vast future that we cannot even imagine is at our doorstep. Don't hang on to the past. Don't try and fit the future into a past that no longer even fits that which is passing away. The reflexive ego tries to hang on to that which we believed yesterday, hoping that we can survive what is happening into tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to come. Let it come. Let the past go. That is the way you're going to survive this extraordinarily difficult transit that is happening to us right now. What you have seen in this new millennium is only the beginning. I don't know how long this change is going to happen. I don't know how long we are going to be in the period of tumult and transition. No one can say that for sure. But I do know that the period that is going to succeed our present world is going to be so much better. Where there was strife, there's going to be peace. Where there was scarcity, there's going to be abundance. And I know that to many of you, it just seems an impossibility. But I also know when I predicted the economic collapse in 2007, nobody believed that either. That seemed, well, how could it be? Our world was getting better and better and better, or so it seemed. What was really happening, our world was moving closer to the edge of a cliff. And we are already sliding down that cliff. And as it's accelerating, change is accelerating. Ideas are being swept aside. And the new world is not yet visible. But it will be. Because first of all, the dust of the present day has yet to settle. Because the edifice of banker-based, debt-based money and the materialistic beliefs which it has fostered, the belief that money will make you happy, the belief that material well-being is all you need. And I'm not saying money is not a wonderful thing, for it is. Great things are possible with vast wealth. Possible. It doesn't mean that they will be done, but they are possible. There's nothing wrong with wealth. There's nothing wrong with abundance. There's nothing wrong with material security. But in our past era, in the present age, we've raised materiality. We've raised it to such a degree that until very, very recently, selfishness was seen as the passport to your well-being. The icons of our age were the CEOs of Wall Street until it turned. And now we're beginning to see how bitter is the fruit of their unabashed pursuit of profit. And it took this for you to see it. It took this for you to understand that there was something wrong with where we were going. Because on the way there, you were quite happy. As long as you could pay your today's bills, as long as your kids could have the life that you thought that you could give them, you were happy. But now you find yourself increasingly out of work, increasingly being kicked out of your homes, increasingly being buried in an avalanche of debt based upon healthcare costs, based upon educational costs, buried in this. And you're also seeing how carnal those who run this country really are. If you believe your leaders really care about you, if you believe that bankers want you to be well, other than your ability to pay your loans back, well, go ahead and believe it. Hang on to those beliefs. Hang on to everything. But it's not going to do you any good. The times, they are a-changing. A new world is coming. And I know it's scary for most people because we prefer the familiar even to heaven itself.